And with the old adage, it's better late than never. We may be testing that.
Special time. We're going to call it a special time, Ironhead.
We may be testing that theory today.
Special start time, special World War episode.
Oh, it's special. It is special, yeah. All right.
Y'all need a distraction today, I bet.
Yeah, it is another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show coming to you from Quaker Steak and Lube at, yes, our very special time on this very special day. Chris Buganati filling in for the Dear Goon once again today. And a few things to cover. We're going to probably extend just a little bit, but not do the full hour today. Probably wrap up at about 10 after or so.
Weather's about to get nasty.
Yes, on this Thursday. Yeah, and it looks like we're kind of right on the cusp of looks a little to the east and south of us. It's going to be worse. We're going to get plenty nasty stuff, it looks like, but it looks like it could end up being more rain than anything here, or at least stuff that quickly becomes just water once it hits the ground. But
yeah,
we'll
sometimes
see.
That's the worst, depending on how the nighttime temps go.
Yeah,
Central Pennsylvania, baby, gotta love it.
Did see they have all of the liquids down. We've been I've been driving all over the Central Pennsylvania area today, so way. I can tell you that they do have the liquid stuff down on all of the main highways for sure, and I suspect at this point on a good number of the secondary roads. But fingers crossed. It's been, and it's what we get this time of the year. I understand late February, early March, you get these 40-degree swings in temperature. You get sunny day, then a cold, rainy day, then a windy, snowy day. It's all part of the fun of living in central Pennsylvania. A few things that do want to get into today as we start to make the turn toward what I do think. I do love March. I mean, I love March Madness. Obviously, I love postseason college wrestling. I love postseason high school wrestling, all of the high school sports. And obviously, we don't cover much on the high school front here. But this is such a fun time of the year when you get into the for the winter sports teams, the basketball and the wrestling tournaments and everything that comes with it, and obviously at the college level as well, same thing as everything just amps up a notch. And then obviously coming out of all of that, you kind of make the turn into spring, and you just feel good about life in general. Generally speaking, although, today's news may be a little more stressing for some of us as we try to kind of envision what may or may not be down the road here on the global front. Just interesting times, right? It's I guess to some degree, it's good to live in interesting times.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know if that's true. It's apocryphal, I think, but they say that's a Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.
Yes. We'll see. I'm like many, very worried about where things are headed here on the global front. So we do use
be a positive
sports
distraction, right?
Yeah, we use sports as a bit of a distraction from the so-called real world, and try to just have some fun and enjoy the games that are with the sports world. And there is. It's interesting. I was talking with just a couple of friends and coworkers here over the last couple of days about, oddly enough, I mean, we're in Happy Valley, so you talk football,
sure,
24/7, 365.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to me just the different perspectives that people have. And I think there's arguments to be made for all of them, and I'm not even sure where I fall on the spectrum. But one of the friends I was talking to really thinks this upcoming season could be really special. And as we talked it through, one of the reasons he's thinking this, and it's completely legit, is you look at that schedule. Auburn is an absolute mess right now.
They are a wreck.
You look at you have Ohio State at home. In normal times, right, this schedule does line up as you're not facing Wisconsin. Who else isn't on the? I was not on the schedule, right? This year, so you're missing two of the traditional, thorns that you have to work through. So the schedule does play in their favor, and I mean, and that's legit. And high hopes for what can be accomplished with the new defensive coordinator and with the talent that's coming back on defense. That's legit. And again, with a year now with the offensive coordinator and getting everything settled a little bit, so on and so forth. So you can, there's reasons to be optimistic. And then talking with somebody else, and they're ready to get rid of Franklin altogether. That this has been a disaster, and it's just going to keep getting worse. And I don't think it's going to get worse this season, but I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility in terms of record. Again, if you get off to a bad, if you lose that game at Purdue and, you start getting finger pointing in the locker room, I mean, it's not a far-fetched scenario to, think that this team could be like a 500 team in the upcoming season.
Yeah.
And I think anywhere in between. And by the way, my other friend wasn't like predicting a national title or anything. So just lest you think that, even the optimistic fans are going crazy. Just said he loves
would feel like a national title.
Well,
at this point.
and that's kind of where he was saying, I really think that they could get there. And I'm like, well, with the schedule and with everything else, I mean, again, I don't think it's far-fetched. I think that's probably about the ceiling, at least at this point as we look. But that's the other part of it is who knows what's going to happen with anything between now and next football season, from the transfer portals to injuries to coaching changes throughout, so that I mean, who knows? but it does feel like there is as much uncertainty. And listen, Goon and I thought we were pretty certain last year, so that certainty doesn't guarantee that what you think you're certain about is actually going to happen. But felt pretty good about last year and until the Iowa game and the injury to Clifford. But this season just feels more uncertain, more up in the air, where, again, at least just one person's perspective anyway, like 6-6 doesn't sound like it's absolutely off the table to me.
No. As I sit here today, I got 6-6.
Yeah, and I don't think 10-2 is outrageously optimistic either. Again, in large part because of the schedule and the way it potentially could play out here.
Okay, so in your opinion, does outrageously optimistic, does that rank above or below wildly optimistic?
Oh, outrageous would be slightly above.
Okay, then right? I agree that it is not outrageously unrealistic. Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
I will be dancing in the streets if Penn State finishes the regular season with double digits in the win column. I think there is a less than 10% chance of that happening.
Really? Now, where's your pessimism coming from?
I
don't think it's unfounded.
I'm just a body of work. I look at two factors.
Okay.
There have been exactly 0 seasons since James Franklin has taken over the Penn State football program when there has not been at least one game, and often there's been more than one, that I can point to and say it is basically inexcusable that Penn State lost that game. There's no reason we should have lost to that team. It had inferior talent. We were not even necessarily out-coached throughout the entire game. We just didn't get it done. Every season, there's 0 outliers. Every single season, there's been one game like that. And the most recent body of work shows me that it's a 500 program, and I get it, fake 2020 COVID season, blah, 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 but everybody was playing under the same conditions, and there were a lot of teams that fared a lot worse, or that fared a lot better than Penn State did in 2020. Yeah. So 500 over the last 2 years, and again, I don't have all the data. I am working on a piece about this for thebloggy.com with their stat head guy, but I can tell you we've got enough to solidify that there is a trend that as the influx of highly ranked talent in the recruiting pipeline to Happy Valley has increased, the number of times Penn State has lost to a team that, if you use the recruiting metrics, had quantitatively inferior talent is year over year up in the last 3 seasons versus the first 4. And that includes 2 years when we had like 65 guys on scholarship. So like recent sample size tells me the trend arrow is pointing down. And I told you this 3 years ago, Ironhead, I was out on house money. Like James Franklin, who I like. I don't want to come across like I'm being down on the guy, but this is where I'm at. He ran out of credit with me on the 2019 Minnesota game. From that point, it was, I will say what I think is going to happen. I picked them to go 10-2 last year. I'll say what I think is going to happen, but you've got to show me. And what they have shown me both since they got here and over the last few years is that this is not a team that is prepared to continue to compete in the Big Ten East, where Michigan State and Michigan have both leapfrogged Penn State in the race to be in the on-deck circle to challenge Ohio State in the division.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, again, I don't.
What
think
a horrible
that's,
downer as we're on the cusp of nuclear war. But here we are. I mean, I'm just calling it like I see it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a ludicrous take. I think that as we talked about, I think we talked about it pretty much right at the end of this last season. I do think this upcoming season is as critical, pivotal, important, whatever phrase you want to use or term you want to coin. This does feel like this is the year where this thing swings one way or the other, and if it doesn't swing one way or the other, then it's swinging the wrong way. I mean, if it's another season where it's 7 wins or less, then it is swinging in the wrong direction.
Do you think the combination of let's be optimistic. Let's say the 2023 class continues on the track it's on right now, which is to be very good and to recruit impact players at positions of need.
Yep.
So that's stacking 2 really good recruiting classes.
Yeah.
Do you think the influx of young talent plus the contract situation, I mean, neither side of the James Franklin Penn State marriage is going apart from each other anytime soon.
Right.
I feel like that almost buys him a year grace period where the real pivot year is 2023 when Drew Aller and Nick Singleton will have been in the program for a year.
Yes, in terms of where the university is. Yeah, I don't think it's a make or break year in terms of James Franklin has to win whatever number you want to put on it, 9 games or sure. He's out. It's not that.
Yeah, of course.
I guess I'm talking more the momentum and the perception, and I'm not talking just in Happy Valley, although most importantly, yes, I'm talking in Happy Valley. But to what you were saying, I think if you have another season, again, 7-5, even 8-4 with that schedule that they have, so almost presuming that the 4 losses would be conference losses.
You can't lose to joker teams like Purdue and Nebraska that just don't have the brand equity of Penn State. And like if I'm doing W's and L's, I have L's on both those games right now.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, again, wouldn't be shocked with L's either one. I do think how this thing comes together over the course of this spring and then this offseason is stating the obvious, but very critical for this team in terms of how the staff meshes and kind of how the players and staff go about truly resolving the issues that haunted this team down the stretch last season after they, kind of had a chance to regain their balance and equilibrium from the Iowa game. And again, I'm more forgiving than many on the Iowa game with the Clifford situation, but I'm less forgiving than some on the Illinois game because, again, by that point, you're a big-time, supposedly a big-time D1 program, right? Like you have to be able to figure that out. And there's enough teams that we've seen figure that out after losing a starting quarterback and be able to make it work and move forward and get everything else, surrounding the new quarterback so that they can stabilize things. And Penn State, just for a wide variety of reasons, was unable to do that this past season with any sustained success. That being said, they also didn't get blown. Again, on paper, Penn State should have lost by 4 or 5 touchdowns to Ohio State, given the previous few weeks' work. Same thing with Michigan. So that, again, I think you can look at this thing and paint the picture however you want to paint it. I guess I'm more curious in seeing what the picture is in the upcoming season. Because here's the thing. I think, well, I don't think. We know with the recruiting class that came in, Penn State was able to sustain weather the storm through the last 2 seasons in terms of kids still wanting to come here, wanting to buy in, all of that. And by the way, I'm not saying if Penn State has a 7-win season in this upcoming year that, Drew, like everybody just jumps ship. But with the recruiting, with the transfer portal the way it is, and with the recruiting game being the way it is, and with Penn State's situation at the moment being a little behind the 8 ball with the NIL stuff, I just don't think you can afford to slide. And I think even with the kids, and I obviously I have no idea how committed or not committed the kids are for this upcoming class, but it has to start taking a toll when you're in as competitive of a conference as the Big Ten.
Yeah.
If you're not, and you're going to lose some of those guys.
You remember,
it's just inevitable. You're going to lose some of those guys, by the way, whether you go undefeated and win a national title or have a 7-win season.
Yeah, wow, that's
because
true.
That's the nature. Because again, you're going to have guys that, well, now I know I can't start here, and I know I'm a starter at a big time D1 program in my mind, and so you're going to lose guys regardless. But that impact, and again, the perception becomes reality in college sports, and you start losing some of those big name recruits or players that have had some success for you. And again, I just think it becomes a really difficult hole to dig out of. I don't think that hole is that deep right at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think Penn State could dig out. I think it is not unrealistic to think Penn State could win 10 games in the regular season in the upcoming year. But again, you've got to have a lot of things get straightened out, and whether or not that happens, and you need some luck. It was on here, right, that I was talking about that 30 for 30 with Tom Brady and Charles Woodson, and I mean it is. And listen, and that's the thing. Like I feel like obviously last season, no question, turned on a dime with Clifford's injury at Iowa, right?
Sure.
And I don't know how that thing would have played out if Clifford stays healthy. They win that game. I'm 100% convinced of that. But does that team then go on if there's no Clifford injury at all that whole season? I don't know. I don't know if at some point they still drop 3 games because that's just the makeup, or they keep getting confident, and we'll never know. And I don't want to get into the argument one way or the other because it's just that. It's a theoretical argument. But you do wonder how much something could change, again, good or bad, in the upcoming season. Maybe there's one huge play and all of a sudden, everything just clicks. Or, again, the opposite side, Clifford comes out in that first game, throws 3 picks against Purdue, and, oh, my God, here we go. So, I don't know. I am really just curious to see how this upcoming season goes, and really kind of how this program responds just as a whole to what has happened here over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say, you've got to give, I think, James Franklin a lot of credit. Over the last few years, I feel like he has been pretty proactive about identifying places where he needs to improve.
Yes.
And attacking those, like the way we've approached the transfer portal, the coaching staff changes, how aggressively he has pushed for more salary to be able to compete, to bring in higher caliber coaches. And then he's done that. Clearly, Mike Yurcich year one was essentially an unmitigated disaster. Like, there's no sugarcoating that it was an utter failure. That was one of the most impotent Penn State offenses of the century. And that is not what you expect when you bring in a guy of his pedigree and his price tag. That said, I'm very far away from giving up on the guy. So I'm still a believer. Mike Yurcich, Manny Diaz as your two coordinators. That looks like, along with all the other assistants. My wife was just telling me Ricky Williams, I guess, was just on social media praising Jawan Sider. This is a really good staff. I feel like it's Taylor Stubblefield's really done a nice job with receivers. Anthony Poindexter was a great hire. Top to bottom, it looks and feels like the staff that you see at the top programs in college football. Yep. So what would really bother me is if the results weren't up to snuff, which they haven't been, and the attitude was stay the course. The fact that he, at least to some extent, is willing to change things up, be self-critical, go in a different direction, retrench on in-state recruiting when that slipped, and you improve the results in the 22 and 23 classes. Yep. So that, to me, is a cause for optimism.
Yeah, and again, we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, it is going to play out, and we're all going to be able to witness it. It's just I don't remember. And that doesn't mean that it hasn't occurred. I just don't remember the fan base being as this widespread in terms of the thoughts, opinions, beliefs of the upcoming season and the overall direction of the program. And again, to me, they're all understandable. I can understand why there are people that are just sick and tired and frustrated with James Franklin, and I can understand why there are people that are jumping up and down excited and truly believe that he will win a national title here at Penn State within the next 5 years. I mean, and again, I don't think either of those are just crazy thoughts about where or how this team should or program should be perceived. And again, this upcoming team is just to me is really hard to get a handle on right now. And yeah, I don't know when you get a handle on it, because I thought we had a handle on last year's team. I mean, I really did going into that Iowa game, and even through the first, almost quarter of that game. It's like, oh, okay, yep, I know who this team is, and nope, I didn't. So I don't know. All of that to say, I have no idea what to expect in the upcoming season. And your point how's that for analysis? It's an honest analysis and the correct one. Anybody who tells you they're sure what this team is going to become next season, or this season, I guess it is now, is blowing smoke. Your point is well taken about the importance of the performance on the field next season to, again, I was generous in granting them another successful recruiting cycle, and a lot of it is dependent on that. You recall probably when Julian Fleming, the Pennsylvania wide receiver, stud recruit in the 2019 class, who has done jack squat at Ohio State, but ended up picking the Buckeyes over Penn State. Well, we had, right after that happened, we had Frank Badani from the York Daily Record on Obligatory, and we were talking about that because he had written a column about Fleming deciding to go to Ohio State. We were just talking about that decision and the state of Penn State recruiting. And if you recall, the 2018 season, that was right on the heels of 2016, 2017, back-to-back New Year's Six bowl appearances, back-to-back 11-win seasons, a Big Ten title in 2016. Yep. All the momentum is going Penn State's way. And then they just stubbed their toe a little bit. They finished with a 9-4 record. And Frank said something that
really stuck with me in terms of what he was hearing from recruits, especially those who had Penn State on their short list, but ultimately chose to go elsewhere. He said, I was very surprised at what kind of impact 9-4 had on the perceptions of the program among young, talented kids. That you would think that feels like a pretty good record, especially coming off 2 back-to-back great years and losing some talent. But he said that difference between 11 wins and 9 wins, and not only that, but the way they lost, the games they lost, and to whom they lost, that left an impression. So, it's not going to impact James Franklin's job status because unless, like several large dump trucks full of money pull up to the Bryce Jordan Center, his buyout means that, again, they're joined at the hip for a while.
Yeah.
But it could dig a hole that it will be incredibly difficult to climb out from if it basically causes the next recruiting class for 2023 to disintegrate because the best players start jumping ship, or the ones you're competing for, they start to get more of a wandering eye. So if nothing else, you feel like you got to hold the bleeding down to at maximum 4 losses.
And the one thing I will say to this point is James Franklin has created, I don't know if you want to, I think it's overused that you have a great culture, but he has had buy-in from the overwhelming majority of players from that second year on. The first year, as with any first-year head coach, I think is a little shaky. But he has had complete buy-in, I think, including the last 2 seasons. I don't think that locker room has fractured, or at least not significantly. Again, there may be a player here or there or whatever, but I do think, by and large, again, he has the kids buying into, yes, what we're doing works, and we're going to be successful with it, and I think that's still there. And I guess that's the other question for me is, okay, if you have another season, again, 7 wins or less, or maybe even 8 wins, I don't know. At what point, I guess, how many seasons of that do you have until the people that have been in the program a few years start saying, wait a second, this isn't working.
You lose the room.
And I don't know. I mean, again, there's all kinds of different dynamics in play. And it's, again, anybody's guess in terms of how that would actually play out. But I do think, obviously, it is easier to get a buy-in when you can see the results in the game outcomes. And I do think, again, I don't know exactly what the number is. It feels like they need to win at least 8 to me, at least to kind of make this thing feel like it's heading back in the right direction again. I think if you get 9 or more wins in the regular season, again, to me, then it probably becomes a pretty easy sell, or an easier sell, that, hey, listen, we know what it takes to win a Big Ten championship. Yep, we got down a couple of years, but we have this great couple of classes coming in. Look what we did to get things back headed in the right direction. And then, again, I think there would be reason for lots of optimism heading into that 2023 campaign. Again, assuming the nucleus and everything else holds together, which you can just never assume these days in college athletics.
Well, that's true. But given that the off-the-field stuff has been about as good as you could hope for I think, realistically, I say this all the time. I like that Penn State is not a place that fires coaches. I'm
with you.
That we have, some thick and thin commitment to our people, that we bring you inside the family. That means that's a two-way street, and there's going to be an institutional commitment to supporting you, and we're not going to cut bait at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah, and listen, I think the
I like that.
Yeah, and I'm with you, and it's one of the things I love most about being a Steelers fan is that consistency. In my lifetime, the coaches I mean, it's been 3 coaches that I can remember. I mean, I don't know, 2 or 3 when Chuck Noll was hired. So for all practical purposes, they've had 3 coaches in my memory in my lifetime.
That is just
ludicrous. I mean, in the National Football League, right? Like that is, I mean, it really is crazy. And it's not that they've just been blindly devoted, right? I mean, Chuck Noll got you 4 titles, Cowher got you a couple, Tomlin got you a couple, and Tomlin, I think, is has been the epitome of consistency, right? With no losing season, and I think,
like we were saying on Tuesday, this was not a great season, but I am now convinced, looking back over the totality of the Steelers' year, this is at minimum the worst roster in terms of top to bottom talent that Pittsburgh has had probably since like the year before they drafted Ben.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So it's like not a good team, and they needed a lot of highly improbable help, but they put themselves in position that if all the tumblers fell into place, at least they got that one last postseason run for Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I do. I like the consistency.
Yeah, with lesser leadership at the top, that's a team that could have won 4 games.
Oh,
this year.
Yeah, especially in that division with the way things unfolded.
100%.
Yeah, I don't think there's
Look at the way Cleveland just folded like a house of cards.
Yeah, and I was listening to a discussion while I've been out traveling the highways and byways of central Pennsylvania. I was listening to, I don't even know, I've been flipping back and forth between Fox and ESPN and all the other sports talk shows, but they were talking about, whoever I was listening to was talking about Baker Mayfield and the Browns. And this is the other thing, is just how quickly perceptions can change. Because going into last season, whoever, and it was an NFL expert, former player that was talking, but he's like, I was convinced that Baker Mayfield was on that trajectory to be one of the elite quarterbacks. Didn't know exactly where he fit in, probably not a top 3 or 4 guy, but really thought he was going to be in that next group here over the next few years in that 5 to 12 range. And he's like, now I don't think the Browns can win with him. And he's like, and that's not fair. The guy was saying, and I don't even think that's fair of me, but I really don't. He goes, and I know the injury and all that. He goes, but you can feel it. He's lost that locker room. And he lost that locker room in the span of 1 season while he was injured. Like, I mean, there's a legitimate excuse there built in for Mayfield. And, he was saying that, at least his perception of the people he talked to was that Baker had that locker room, completely behind him going into this past season, and that it is a much more fractured situation right now in that locker room in terms of the guys that think Baker Mayfield can get them to where they want to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I'm not a Browns fan, so maybe this is easy for me to say, but I think it is utter insanity that they appear to be so close to being ready to cut bait with Baker Mayfield. Now, number one, you committed the number 1 overall pick in the draft to this guy. And do you know how many playoff wins the Cleveland Browns franchise has in the last 26 years?
Yeah. 0.
1.
Oh, yeah.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know who has that win?
I want to forget about that win.
Right. I guess if I'm the coach of the Browns.
That should have been 0.
In the preseason, I call everybody in and I say, okay, everybody look around the room. Look at the logos on the walls. Look at the colors of the team apparel you guys are wearing. Let me show you guys the history of this franchise. And I would go through and I would show them all the quarterbacks, the Factory of Sadness video. I would show the picture of the guy with the jersey with the long piece of paper taped to it, all the quarterback last names. I'd be like, do you guys want to know who the leading passer in the history of this miserable franchise is? It's Brian Sipe. None of you even know who that is.
Yeah.
You were all born after he retired. So I understand that people have been saying that the locker room is fractured. Well, heads up. This this franchise has been a 5-alarm dumpster fire since the Bush administration. And I don't mean George W. Bush. I mean his dad. And the only playoff win we have in 3 decades came via this guy. So guess what? You're not in college anymore. You're professionals. You're getting paid. So if y'all don't get along, I don't give a shit. He's our quarterback. Get out on the field and do your job. Yeah.
No, I think that's fair. That's another one where this upcoming season, is big for Baker and the Browns. Again, just in terms of the whether the fans are buying in, whether the perception is okay. Yep, this thing can still work or will still work or whatever.
Well, and they're not going to. It doesn't help,
right?
Well, so that's going to make it worse. Probably.
Well, here's the other problem for Baker is, sometimes timing is everything, right? Good or bad. Is there a worse time to try to be establishing yourself as a quarterback in the AFC? Yeah. I mean, in the history of the AFC, and obviously there have been other eras where there have been great quarterbacks and great quarterback play throughout the conference.
You're going to be in a division with Lamar Jackson, with Joe Burrow, with Aaron Rodgers, and you could play really well and be the 4th worst quarterback.
Well, but I'm telling you, between Mahomes and Allen, and we'll see. Tua is another one that I think people are debating where he's going to fit in the overall structure. But I mean, I still think Tua has a chance to be something special there. Obviously, Mac Jones. I mean, you've got. It's just tough to get yourself or allow yourself to stand out in that conference right now, which is just ridiculously loaded with top-end quarterbacks. The overwhelming, Herbert, I mean, the overwhelming majority of whom are young. I mean, Derek Carr is a... I still would not mind if the Steelers would end up with Derek Carr. I got to tell you, I would be... you could count me as one that would be thrilled with that situation for the Steelers, because I think with everything else there, that could work. And we'll see. I mean, there may still be additional great quarterbacks, whether Aaron Rodgers comes into the AFC. But I mean, it's just so
you feel like maybe Derek Carr has like a Matt Stafford thing going on, where maybe held back a little bit by a chaotic situation with the team he's a part of.
But he was so good as a leader last year. I mean, and listen, I'm not a Raiders fan, and I'm not one way or another on Derek Carr, but you can't help but be impressed with. I mean, the guy's numbers have been solid from the get-go. But the way he held that thing together last year with everything else going on around him, I mean, that is like. That's what you want in a quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. Is a dude who can clearly establish himself as a leader. And I mean, there's no question that Derek Carr did that. I mean, he's not throughout his career, but I mean, definitively did that last season in really tough circumstances surrounding that organization. So, I don't know. It's about all I got. I'm exhausted. It's been a very strange day. I will. I'll apologize. The reason we're on a half hour late is my day job. Just we had an absolutely bizarre day today, and I just couldn't get down here.
There's a lot of that going around right now.
5 minutes before we went on. So my apologies, but that's life, I guess. We will be back on Tuesday. I believe the Dear Goon will be here. At least that's the plan. So we should be here as always. We appreciate you, Mr. Booch, for all you do. We appreciate you bearing with us today and tuning in as well. And again, we hope you have a great weekend. We will be back on Tuesday with another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here from Quaker Steak and Lube in State College. Until then, be good and be safe.
Peace.
The leap of faith. Some hesitate. but not you. You don't ask what if. You embrace what's next with open arms. You don't question your decision. You double down. Because you know the thrill is worth it. Introducing the 2022 Telluride Nightfall Edition.
There's always something happening at Quaker Steak Lube. From live music to exciting new flavors, meet your friends and refuel at your local Quaker Steak Lube today. Can't slow down? Then order online. Pick up and get back on the road. Find us at thelube.com.
Hi, Johnny Broom here. If you're in the market for a new Hyundai or a pre-owned car, truck, van, or SUV, nobody beats a Blaze Alexander deal. But don't take my word for it.
Hey, Goon says tell him Johnny sent you.
Hey, tell him Johnny sent ya.
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Wait, tell him Juan or tell him Johnny sent you?
Tell him Johnny sent you.
Here at Bill Pickles Tap Room, we say,
tell him Johnny sent you.
And remember,